The theme was the next European Renaissance. The theme of the class of 2020 edition 2013 was the next European Renaissance. I heard many elements of a Renaissance. I also heard a lot of old stuff, things that most likely never change. I hope you have mingled along with the crowd and you got some feedback of today. Is there somebody who wants to start? And what I have here is a whiteboard on which I will write in my further unreadable handwriting what I'm going to tell together with Frank to the deputy mayor of Amsterdam in about 3 or 4 months' time when we meet her again and tell her what she should do to improve the student housing situation in Amsterdam and to improve the conditions so others can start investing in this system over here. So
I'll get us started.
Good. I appreciate that.
I think one of the conclusions I got today is that it makes sense for governments and for cities to consider specific regulation for student housing. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes trying to apply residential regulation or commercial hotel regulations, it's extremely difficult, and you get into a situation where you need to make exceptions, and then the lawmakers, are not sure why they should make the exceptions. And I think by starting from scratch and trying to think what makes sense in order to develop student housing, whatever it is that the city needs, I think it's sometimes better than trying to fit student housing into an existing regulation.
Could be a very successful strategy because due to the crisis, I notice a change in central government, and they are willing to change the rules and regulations. And by using the word experiment for a specific class, that even helps even more, because then that's an exception, and bureaucrats like exceptions. Nothing against bureaucrats, just to be sure, but they like to call an exception an experiment, and then they are willing to cooperate with it. So I'll take that with us.
Can I contrast a bit on that point?
That's unfortunate. I'm trying to build a list of positive things, but go ahead.
You can still make it better, I hope.
Okay, that would be good.
But I thought, I have to contrast because I had a very interesting discussion on I represented the investor side, so on regulation. And the discussion was very simple. It turned around the fact that investors like regulation when the regulation is in favor of them. Yeah. They don't like it when it's not. Yeah. They like subsidies when the euros go in their direction. They don't like it. So we have perhaps we have a difficult position currently, and we should take another approach to the topic than always saying regulation and good regulation and bad regulation and better regulation, because you don't get out of this circle. So
what would you add or take out of the first sentence?
I think that the answer would be get rid of regulation. Laissez faire, I think.
Or even better.
Robert heard the farmers say, no?
So I do it in black, so you see the added quality of your comment. Yeah. Or even better, get rid of it.
Flexible regulation.
Yeah.
Or maybe the same regulation for every country. I mean, this is the problem that we are all facing when you go to Italy, when you go to Germany, when you go to France. Every time it's a new story. And this is very complicated for investor operators who wants to go with a pan-European vision. Something which has worked very well is the Bologna Treaty. They put together all the country that hasn't been able to, find for themselves what was going on in their own country, and he obliged every country to follow the same rules. So maybe the solution is also at the European level.
So, but is it no rules at European level, or a separate class?
At least the same rule. At least the same rule for all the countries.
At least same rules.
I'd say the specific regulations for student housing is even quite dangerous, because maybe it's good for the asset class student housing, but it will affect the other asset classes like residential or healthcare. So I guess it's better to get rid of it or have the same rules and skip the first one, specific regulation. Okay.
I cannot do that.
No.
First of all, because you're a lady, that's one thing. But the second thing is that
It's a non-judgmental list.
Okay, no,
so
no,
you
no.
have to put the
Right.
number.
So by saying that it has to be a separate class, that still doesn't exclude the fact that there are very limited rules, right? That's a smart political answer, right? Very good. Okay.
I would take it a step back further, especially for when you're thinking about taking information to the city of Amsterdam and bringing multiple groups together. Everyone has competing priorities, so there needs to be a shared vision for what is success. What are we really wanting to achieve, and what will our outcome be? And then what information are we all bringing to the table in order to achieve that outcome together? So really defining what would success look like.
And the answer is?
I think as you bring together all those different folks with the deputy mayor, I think that group needs to really define what success is here in the city of Amsterdam, because I think that's going to look different here than what it might look like in other areas of
But
the world.
we can define various outputs. We can say we need 10,000 more housing units in the next 5 years here.
And
you-
that could be your definition of
that-
success.
Yeah, but you can also say, given the other stories that we heard, you have to build up a combined community around university with housing.
Exactly.
So what would your take be on that? With your international experience, how would you?
I would look at, I think it's 5 different areas.
That's a lot.
I know.
Yeah.
But as you think about creating that,
Yeah.
creating that opportunity for community,
Community?
and how that interacts, not just community within the residents, but community within the city, and thinking more largely than just where the students are interacting. How you continue to make that sustainable, a sustainable model not only for...
Didn't you notice how little that word was used today?
I did,
Yeah,
I did.
I'm in favor of that.
You don't want it to be
It's a
sustainable?
worn out word. I mean, so if you say sustainable, then please tell us what you think is sustainable.
That it can live on beyond all of us in this room.
Okay?
Yeah, that we're putting something in place that has a future beyond all of us working in the positions that we have currently.
Okay.
Okay.
That's 2.
Okay, I know, I see. Technology, how technology's in it.
Which means?
How we're incorporating the use of technology for our students and for our workplace.
But that's more than Wi-Fi, right?
Yes, yes. Culture was certainly a huge
That's
impact
4?
throughout the day. That's 4.
Culture,
I have one
yeah.
more.
Okay. Yeah.
And affordability is the 5th. And from some of the students that are in the room, I need to bring to the table that the students are interested in rooming together with one another.
Okay. They don't mind.
They don't mind.
Okay.
At least some of the students that are present here today.
Can I add that to affordability?
Yes,
If
that's
n-
part
yeah.
of affordability,
Yeah, okay.
because that would be a component of that.
They like to share rooms. Okay. And 10,000 units. Don't you think so? I mean,
Yeah.
that's measurable.
Yeah,
One
it's
thing-
measurable.
What I liked about the former mayor of New York, or still mayor right now, Bloomberg, he said,
Yeah.
former, at the end of the day, I want to show them that I added 10,000 trees to the city. And whatever I did, that at least you have 10,000 trees,
Yeah,
right?
it's measurable.
Can we say 10,000? Bob, how much houses do you think we need to build here in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, it's now calculated in 5,000. but
5,000.
5,000?
Sorry, 10,000, yes, okay. Okay. Bob says 10,000.
Maybe to make a bridge with the question I had to remark, which was the business models and operation.
Yeah.
In terms of business models, I think that the on-campus business model likes co-sharing. I think maybe the off-campus not that much. I think that will be maybe one of the new difference of where the market is going. Of course, I think today we just defined the on-campus and the off-campus with a lot of crossovers, and I especially like the discussion this morning where we took also all the virtual side, this new virtual side that you don't need to be in a place to study or you can interact. virtually. And I think that's
How would I call that? The virtual community,
the virtual
virtual
aspect maybe of the
virtual
student housing.
aspect.
Even in Casa 400, I just noticed that they have the apps for Casa 400, and most of the student residents in the future will also have their apps, and the students will receive their bills, and they will communicate through their apps. So this is something very new. But in terms of
do not forget, that's what I would say, right? Do not forget the virtual aspect.
yeah, this is something which is crossing between the on-campus and the off-campus. But I think a lot of the panels today also were clear players of one of this business model. We had Bob and Christina a little bit earlier, which were focusing a lot with the relation of the university, having a nomination agreement or securing their place in the university, and that is most of the time the on-campus business. While the off-campus, we really have to fight, let's say, with all the students in town and with all the university at the same time. And where the students have this kind of choice, most of the time they do prefer single rooms. We in our student residence in Barcelona, we have the two types, and for us it really is hard to put
and I'm not
twin
saying
rooms.
that they don't prefer it. I'm just saying I'm bringing that to the table because that was something that I heard today, was that the students desire that because of the affordability.
But I think what you're saying is the diversity of the answer is so much important, because there's more than just this 16 square meter room.
Which is another subject which has been raised, no? The diversity of the typology of the rooms. I think we've talked about single, we've talked about twin, we talked about studios. In our case, we even have double room used as a single occupancy during the year and as a double occupancy during the summer, which is the hybrid model between the student residence and the student hotel. So I think the two business models are in a momentum where they are trying to define themselves. Maybe a last point on the off-campus model, which is something maybe more important than the on-campus, is the branding. When you are on campus, at the end you only work with one client, so you don't really need to brand it because you don't make any commercial effort to get the students to your residence. While in the off-campus, branding is very important, and when you are saying there is no Marriott or no Hilton of the student residence, I think we should all work to be the Marriott or the Hilton of the student residence. We're the hotels were 40 years ago. We are the first people building student residence chains, and so we should, I think, also as we are all together today, also think about how we can promote ourselves a little bit like the hotels. I mean, they have their position with 2 stars, with 3 stars, with 5 stars, and how come in the student residence world there is not even a level of quality which allow the students to know that they are going to this type of student residence and they can expect to have this kind of services.
Label of quality. I just write it down. So,
I taking into account everything I talked to the other participants, the first point in the list we put about the regulations. In my opinion, according to what I talked, is the main issue, because if we have a free market that can regulate itself, and then you can build a flexible product and then to adapt for the future needs for the next generation, for example, because things are changing very fast. The student housing accommodation now, it's completely different from 10 years ago. And the needs for the students today, it's completely different from the students in the next 10 or 20 years. So the important is to understand their needs and to address all their expectations. But if you have a very restricted regulation, it's not possible to adapt. For example, if you have 1 room or 2 bedrooms, or you have to be flexible and not regulated by
Do I need to add
the city.
something to the first statement, or what is said over there fits what
Yeah,
you
it's
just...
good. Maybe the second one, get rid of
Yes,
it.
that was another... That gets another Brazilian vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even make it flexible or something
Yeah.
like this.
Still things that you...
No, we're still talking about the mayor of Amsterdam.
Yes,
So the topic is-
we're
The
gonna
topic is Amsterdam.
present...
Perhaps one is ride the waves of the second Renaissance.
Hmm?
Because in some way the second Renaissance is of course already underway, because we as Europeans have exported our ideas on individual human rights, on democracy, on how markets work, and we're exporting that to the BRIC countries. And that's where our customers are. So actually the decline of Europe is a bit somewhere also relative, because our ideas are somewhere else, and those ideas produce people that want to come also to Europe.
Are
So
you
the-
saying that you can either try to work on a European level or just go with the flow? It's going to happen anyhow, and you better profit from the things that are changing, because
Well, I think if you want to command the market, you should accept it a
Okay.
bit as it is. And we have a fantastic opportunity that our society model is the one that is being exported around the world. And that is creating free people that want to study with their free time and learn new people in new countries. And the mayor should go to these countries and I guess attract those students. And I think other capital cities should do that as well. She should ride the waves of this second Renaissance, which is
That's the
already there.
Boris Johnson
The
model.
mayor example of Boris Johnson. I think that's the Renaissance will happen differently, of course, than it happened the first
and
time.
you're saying brand the city accordingly.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think
You don't do it, but trust me, I'm writing that down here.
I was listening to the community, making communities, and a few things that I found interesting is that from the point of view of the investor, building a community for students. What I heard is very interesting because it gives you loyalty of the students, and it gives you free marketing. And that's on the scale of the project itself, but also on the scale of on an urban scale. It's interesting for the city because for the branding of the city, it's good to have a lot of students, and they bring an enormous economic power in the city. So, in that sense, the building of community is important for as well the city and the university as the investors themselves. And of course, for the students, it gives them the best time of their life.
Is it clear to you how you make a community?
Well, I think one of the things that you said is you have to put spoons on on the ceiling so that you can share the spoon to stir in the coffee.
Yeah.
And there was something with cockroaches.
That was on the boat.
Common enemy or something.
A common enemy always
Yeah.
works. Yes, we need more Indians. Yeah, that was the old story.
No, the main thing on a project scale is create facilities for the students, communal facilities, so they can share the kitchen or they can do whatever, and organize events. I think that's something that you did, organize the football games, that kind of things.
Are you going to provide that service as a company?
I think we should, yeah. Yeah, especially in
Can
the
you
bigger
convince
schemes.
your board of that?
You know that we are very conservative
That's
as
why
an
I'm
institutional
asking.
player. But I think it's very important, and you need to have some flexibility in your project as well to be able to adapt to new demands.
Okay. Are you already noticing that in your company that business model is more acceptable than 3 or 4 years ago?
We have some student schemes in operation, but they are very small, so there's not much need of organizing a lot of things. But the bigger schemes that will be delivered in a year or so, I think they need it, and I'll have to convince the board that they're going to
Yes.
do something about it.
I see you making this presentation, this little line in there, soccer game, 10,000 euros a year, then what's
Actually,
that?
we
you
we
know?
did it in one of our projects. We make some sporting
Okay.
areas. Yeah.
It could also be trick, let them discuss the soccer games and then they don't look at the rest of your proposal. That might be a good diversion tactic. Anything else?
Yeah, I would like to add something in terms of business models and operations. I think we haven't talked that much about really the role of the operator. And I think student housing for a lot of us is just the collateral of the real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, you know, all those alternative investment markets, it's self-storage, senior housing, student housing, it's just a box. And you put inside the box whatever works for you. But it's not like there are so many operators who are really trying to see what we've been calling during all day long a student as a customer. And this relation with this customer is something I think also very new in this market. When the city halls will stop calling us because they've got a plot of land 10,000 kilometers away from the city center, thinking, oh, that should be good for student housing.
That's Singapore.
Well, I think then we'll get where we want to go, which will be to have a decent purpose-built student residence and to consider our students as customer, and then all what you have identified as community, as sustainability, as technology, are things that we will be able to add to this box, and I think that then it will work perfectly.
It's not only construction, it's also operating, that's what you're saying.
I'm saying that for the university housing, even if we said today that it was important, it's not on the top of their list. I think for investor, operation is part of the business, but it's, I mean, when you look at the business model, you just make your money on the exit.
Yeah.
You don't make that much money running the student residence. If you don't have a capital value, well, you would not even invest there. So some people even, you know, do the investment, but they don't take care of the operation. They just lease it to someone else. So there are not a lot of real players like the hoteliers in the student housing world. But that will pop up because I think now students want that and the market wants it too.
Just to add what Fabien said, the most successful case you're seeing now at the market, and they are thinking about the student experience, not only the real estate or something. The student experience. So you start from this, and then you develop, and then you think about your operation.
Right. I think I wanted to add another point again, thinking about the main focus, which is what can we tell the city of Amsterdam. But the point that was made about transparency and quality of information, I think is very important to attract investors. To have a good, good background research about number of students, your universities, income of your students, income, even income by zip code, how much competition of rental housing. There's so much information you can use to analyze an investment, and the more that is available, the more comfortable investors will feel.
Very good point. And you think the city should actively trying to get that information together to present to investors?
That will facilitate very much and give.
That was a good point.
Make investors more at ease with making a decision.
And there's a question was addressed to me. It's like how to start up in the student housing company.
Yeah.
The first advice would be don't do that. But be patient. Be patient is the most valuable advice I can
So explain that. I mean,
because you have to talk to so many investors and to explain and to convince them that it's not about the asset only. Like it's a whole package. So
are you being pessimistic now, or are you?
No. Very optimistic.
Optimistic,
but saying that it's a long way.
You should start as an entrepreneur, but take time.
Yeah,
it's going to take 2 to 3
Yeah.
years at least to get to be patient.
Yeah. And do it with passion.
Patient and passion. So
Patient and passion.
Patience, patience
And passion.
and passion. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. From the room, is there anything missing? Is there something you learned today? Or is it They totally forgot that.
Oh, back in the corner.
I was just thinking about the diversity in the sense of other types of programs. So for people who are leaving university and have to settle
Yeah.
in the city, and we think of little startups, and so we talked about diversity of rooms.
Yeah.
It's also about the bigger picture, diversity that kind of keeps the people in the city, and rather than tourists who leave after 5 years to another place.
Yeah. So you're saying diversity of people, of
Diversity of programs, so it's not only student housing, but it is also about
all the other
housing
stuff.
for
Yeah.
people who are just starting with work, who want to start a small
Yeah.
company.
And retention.
Yeah.
Retention.
Yes,
of
retention.
people.
So we said that yesterday when whoever was there. It's about a chain. It's about a chain that starts with somebody going into the city and then graduating, my daughter getting her first job, and then
It's not just about the product, but it's
No.
about the economy.
chain.
Yeah, Unite did it pretty well in England with the key workers, opening some residences for key workers.
Anything else?
I look at it on an international level. I think if Amsterdam is really keen on getting more international students, what they need to do is like what Javier was saying. I think they need to get out there and they need to promote Amsterdam as the city itself.
Yeah.
When I go to international student fairs, oftentimes I see a pavilion that says study in Holland. To me, that makes no sense. You're like promoting the entire country. You're not differentiating why Amsterdam is important in that whole thing. What I was going to
So
add.
you think Amsterdam is a better brand than Holland?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And
Yes,
if you're
it is.
offering programs in English, that needs to be out there 100%. This is what you can get a degree in Amsterdam in
Right.
English. And then also, if you have work opportunities, once a student is done, like an internship for 2 years, or a work possibility, or the possibility for a student to get a work visa after that, that is going to incredibly increase the number of students that you get
The
here.
one-stop shopping solution, all that stuff that was mentioned before.
Especially for the foreign population, because it sounds like what you're trying to do is increase your foreign numbers.
I'm going to go down for a second because now.
And then if you get more foreign demand, you're going to get more, demand for student beds. So one just feeds into the other. Then you can put more pressure on the government to say, hey, we need more of this because we're clearly getting a higher quality, larger number of students in the door. What are we doing for them?
I feel.
You need a second whiteboard.
Yeah. That's. Yeah, that's a good one. Anything else?
Yeah.
Hey.
Hello, my name is Alex. I want to add, actually I want to add 2 things. Because the whole day we've talked about the student as a customer. And the best way to know what a customer wants is to involve the customer in the process. So if you're building a project, we can talk days and weeks about what students want. But if you really want to know what students want, involve them in the process. And the second thing is diversity is important, of course. But most of the discussion today was about the top layer of students that can afford afford to buy big rooms or rent hotel rooms. But most of the students don't have the income, especially in the future. So affordability, it is one of the most important things. And we can skip all regulations. I guess that would be good to invest. But if nobody wants to pay the non-regulated prices, also as an investor you will have a problem and the risk will be higher. So that was what I wanted to add.
Affordability. Okay. There's another one over here. Another.
Could you have separate regulation for international students? So if price is not really an object for them, do they need to be subject to the same controls as the domestic cohort? Could you not just have separate accommodation with separate rules?
That's okay.
I would say then you're just putting up barriers for people to come if they're not going to be treated the same. and integrate it into that experience.
Well, in the UK, they pay 2 or 3 times more in fees than the domestic cohort, and they're coming in their droves.
So the way to resolve that is not creating different classes, because knowing Amsterdam, everybody becomes changes citizenship in order to go for cheaper rooms. So there will be loopholes that they will try to find. Now I think what you can do is subsidize foreign students coming over, specifically because they're foreign. That could be possible, and then you lower the price. That's the more objective way of doing it.
I don't know how it would work in detail. I'm just saying in principle.
In principle.
Do they need to be treated in,
Yeah.
do they need to be regulated in exactly the same way as the domestic cohort? Because in the UK, they're not treated the same and they still come.
Okay. Point. Yeah, there's one over there.
Is the role of the universities already on the board when it comes to housing? I heard Bob Crompton say that in the UK they gave guarantees to make projects and developments possible. I don't think that's the case in Holland.
I'll just include universities in the process.
Yeah, providing guarantees, or, well,
Good.
from a developer's perspective, you can help universities make guarantees to foreign students that they have a bed when they come to Holland.
Yep.
I've got another one.
Yep.
What about the quality of education?
Mhm.
I mean, you can have all the infrastructure you want, but if your study region is not what it is, if you're not a university, it's much better. Students go to the quality place of education.
I will put it on the paper, but I'm very sure that she understands that very much. That's the most important thing. That's why she, for instance, is very much fighting for more universities, better universities. So that's a politically already correct statement. I'm looking for the ones that they didn't come up with.
Okay.
But I appreciate your addition.
On the affordability and subsidizing, I mean, as has been said, in the past the UK and Australia have introduced differential fees, full cost fees for international students, and they have been very successful still to get more students coming in. And the Netherlands have done that, Sweden has done that recently as well, because they don't want to subsidize a rich millionaire kid anymore. So what you have to do is not subsidize every foreign student, but you have to make a distinction between those talents you really want in your city and in your university, and the quality delivered to that, and subsidize those if they need the money. That's a much more selective way and effective way than just saying we are going to subsidize the son of a mafioso somewhere in Latin America.
Yeah, well, Rudy, you alerted me when Christina mentioned the free land to provide as a city. And it puzzles me a little bit because there is a plea for free market. And Amsterdam is a city that is an exception because we have 90% of the land. So we can do with the land whatever we want, but we have some regulations, European regulations even. We can't give away land that easily.
It doesn't stop the Spanish.
When I said free, I didn't mean it's not completely free. There is a canon that we pay to the university, but it's nothing compared to what the cost would be of buying the land. You know, it's a canon that you pay to use that land for, say, 50 years. Yeah.
So if you want to know how to avoid the European rules, go to Spain.
Just to add the last thing, talking about the affordability, everybody's saying, when we say free market, we are not mentioning that the market seems to be only for high layer or high class. It depends on the developer. There's no magical formula. You have to invest private money. You have to have at least the minimum yields. So you have to buy the land. You have to build the building, construct the building. You have to put the equipment there, and you have the operational costs. So by the end, you have the result and the result you have to, we can say, to close the account. You know, like you have to have your result by the end. And if we have the opportunity to build a high-end quality student housing and accommodation, we can do this. But in certain regions, we cannot do this. And I'm saying that because in my country, we don't have any kind of regulation. We have the good side, but we have also the bad side.
But I think, sorry to interrupt you, what's very important of what you say and what the others have said here is that Amsterdam has a very specific tradition in which everything always has to be affordable. And what we're saying is, no, there's different classes. There is affordability, but there is also very rich, very rich people who want to study too. And make them feel welcome here. I mean, don't do it the other way around.
Maybe those students, they don't want to share a room.
Those students are coming with a lot of money, and they are the ones who are doing the role of prescription when they're coming back to their country, and that represents quite a lot of money for the city hall. So it's you cannot afford to lose this income today in Amsterdam or in any city in Europe.
Do not be afraid of filthy rich students. That's the kind of...
do not be afraid to attend all kind of students in your town.
But if I can add on the affordability, because I think of all the people here present, we are the ones who have the most affordable model, and we have investors as well. So is that traditionally the way countries in Europe have solved the issue of affordability is by having either the city or the university themselves undertake the role of owning and operating their own student accommodation. And I think that's a mistake, because that is diverting resources of the city or the university into activity that is not core to the university and for which they are not necessarily professional. So what we did in Spain is to say, rather than you doing that, you know, we reach an agreement by virtue of having the land under certain conditions, so that I will be able to provide the accommodation in an affordable way, and I'm a professional manager. I'm going to do it better and more efficiently.
Okay. You had wanted to say something more. I interrupted you. No?
No.
Okay.
It's okay.
I don't want to be impolite.
Thank you.
I'm going to make that the last remark, because I promised the Belgium delegation in this room to start with a beer at 5 o'clock.
I feel the pressure, okay. No, my suggestion would be, like, in the discussions to also include the student associations, like the sororities, fraternities, like Minerva, for example, like in Leiden, or like whatever they are, in order to understand better the student preferences. And also, I mean, through these memberships, they can also direct their members to purpose-built like accommodation. They are very powerful. I mean, they're even more powerful than universities in the Netherlands. So, yeah, could be something to consider for.
Thank you. Thank you all. I do like to, unless somebody else has to say something very important, and no?
One small thing.
It has to be very important.
Yes, I think it is. Okay. I think today was an important step forward from an investor perspective, because we saw for the first time what is a hybrid European return index on European student housing. And I think we should thank IPD to do that, because it's an important step forward, and we should help them make another one as well.
That was an important remark.
Now we get a beer.
Okay. Now the beer. Can I ask you to, and thank you first of all, an applause for all the good work that you've done.